Welcome to the presentation of a lecture from Gnostic Radio, a free public service from the Gnostic tradition of Samael Aun Weor. Gnosis is the root wisdom of all the world's great religions. Gnosis is a universal teaching of practical science, whose goal is absolute liberation from suffering and the complete development of the human being. This lecture is one of many available by free download or podcast. The hundreds of hours of lectures range in topic and complexity in order to address the many needs of humanity. Each Saturday, Gnostic Radio broadcasts live. The live lecture is accompanied by an online chat, allowing listeners to read additional explanations related to the lecture and providing an opportunity to ask questions of the speaker. To learn how to participate or tune into our continuous web broadcast, visit our website for more information at gnosticradio.org. Gnostic Radio is made possible by the financial support of listeners like you. For more information or to make a donation, visit our website at gnosticradio.org. Now, with heartfelt wishes for the end of suffering for all creatures, we begin the lecture. May all beings be happy. Tav, the 22nd Hebrew letter, is the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And as such, it represents the completion or synthesis of all of the Hebrew letters. Within the Tav, we find the complete synthesis or sum of everything. In order to understand the Tav, it is necessary for you to understand all of the Hebrew letters. This letter having the depth and breadth and weight of all of the other letters. It is very deep, very complex. In fact, it is this letter that appears throughout the scriptures, but is often unrecognized. The Tav in itself represents a mark, a stamp, a seal. For example, when you, in ancient times, would write a letter, you would seal it with wax, and an official document would receive an impression, a stamp, a seal in that wax. This is Tav. Tav is the final stamp, the definition, the summation of what's contained in the letter. So you see, this letter is very significant. It represents the completion of the human being, the completion of the work. The Tav in itself, as a shape, is comprised of two letters. To make a Tav, you unite a Dalet and a Nun. Dalet and Nun. You can see the Dalet in the right-hand aspect of the Tav. And you can see the Nun in the left-hand aspect of the Tav. Dalet Nun spells Dan in Hebrew. and Dan means judgment. The Tav is judgment. It is how we are judged. It is the summation of our action. When we reach the end, the completion of our own life, we face a judgment. We receive a tav, a seal, a stamp, a mark. And that seal, that tav, is the mathematical completion of our every action. Every thought, every feeling, every movement of energy that has moved through us is summarized, is calculated, and upon that final calculation is put a tav, a mark. It is the synthesis of our life. And from that mathematical equation, we proceed to the next step based upon that mark. Likewise, at the end of any cycle of evolution, our consciousness receives a tav, a mark. When we complete the period of time we are allotted in a human organism, we receive a tav. When we complete a manvantara or a mahamanvantara, we receive a tav, a summation of our every action, our every movement. And that summary is what propels us to the next stage. Humanity itself, in the many cycles through which it passes, receives mark after mark as we pass from age to age, from stage to stage. These marks are also called initiations. Every initiation is a tav. It receives a stage, a mark, a summary. But the ultimate tav, the final, greatest tav, is written of in the book of Revelation. It is that final, ultimate synthesis of every movement, of every action that we have ever performed in all of our existences. And it is this tav that we must most be concerned about. Because it is this tav that propels us to our ultimate destiny. In the early books of the Bible, in Leviticus, it is written, "You shall not do injustice in judgment, in length, in weight, or in measure." Justice is the law. Justice is the law of God, the law of the divine, the law of nature, which seeks to balance everything, to reach an ultimate equilibrium of all energy. This ultimate justice is expressed in Hinduism as triguna, the three gunas, three modifications of prakriti, which relate to how energy acts in every level of manifestation, from the Ein Sof down. Justice, perfect justice, is the perfect equilibrium of those three gunas. And when that perfect justice is acquired, the soul enters back into the absolute with absolute knowledge. Such a soul is called Paramartha Satya in Sanskrit. Such a soul has received the crown of life. This crown of life is written of in Revelation. For the one who is faithful unto death will receive it. The one who is faithful to the Ein Sof through all things and equilibrates all energy in perfect balance receives that crown. That crown is a mark, a tav. That crown is related with keter. And the middle letter of the word keter is a tav. That tav is central to keter. It is the very point of equilibrium of keter. Tav, the mark, the completion, That tav is the crown, keter. And that keter is the entrance into and out of manifestation. It is the crown of life. To receive that, the soul must be perfected. And to reach perfection, the soul must first be illuminated. And to reach illumination, the soul must first be purified. These are the three stages about which Samael Aun Weor wrote many times, and which are symbolized in every religion. First, we must pass through purification. Second, we must be illuminated. And third, we must be perfected. Of course, all of the spiritually minded people in the world, as soon as they hear of religion or spirituality or mysticism, want immediate illumination and begin to assume that they are perfect, but they have not even approached the first stage, which is purification. This is why in the Gnostic movement we focus intently on purification, because without it one can never be illuminated. Therefore, one can also never be perfected. Illumination comes from light. To receive the illumination of God, the illumination of that primordial light which underlies all creation, requires that we become an empty vessel that light can fill. That empty vessel is what is measured. That empty vessel is us. It is our human soul. The human soul is Tiferet on the tree of life. It is the central sephira, right in the middle of the tree of life, both vertically and horizontally. Tiferet begins and ends with tav. This is extremely significant. The tav is the beginning and ending of the human soul. The tav. That is because it is the human soul that is measured, that is judged, and it is Tiferet that must fill the tree of life with light. Tiferet means beauty, and beauty comes from light, but the light of Christ. That light emerges from fire, which you know is Shin, Esh, the 21st character of the Hebrew alphabet, which we heard about in the previous lecture. That Shin emerges in our human soul through purification. And when the human soul is being purified, it is also being illuminated with that Esh, fire. Tiferet is central. Tiferet is our consciousness, which is here in us, but bottled up, trapped in the ego. Our own Tiferet, our own human soul, is in darkness. None of us are illuminated. None of us have our consciousness awake. Instead, we have our consciousness trapped in impurity. We need to be purified of impurity. There are two ways to arrive at purification. The first is mechanically. Nature can do it for us. If we choose, we can simply wait. And this is why many spiritual groups say, ultimately, all souls return to the light. This is true. But what they don't say is how. All souls, all human souls, will return to the Ein Sof. But those who have not consciously and willingly purified themselves of their mistakes will only return to the Ein Sof after they have been purified by nature. And that purification is called hell. Genom, Avicii, Averno, Hades, the realm of Pluto, Tartarus, suffering. And all of us are already experiencing it. Everyone on this planet is already in hell. This entire planet is sinking, psychologically speaking, into hell. That is why suffering is so pervasive. It touches every aspect of our lives. None of us are free from suffering because all of us have a psyche that belongs in hell. Therefore, none of us can make any claim to being illuminated or purified, much less perfect. For us to redeem that human soul, our own consciousness, we need to understand who and what we are. Malkut is the bottommost sephira on the tree of life. Malkut ends with the letter Tav. So observe this. On the tree of life, we have at the very top, Keter, written with Tav. In the middle, we have Tiferet, which begins and ends with Tav. And at the bottom, Malkut, which ends with Tav. This is significant. In the central column of the tree of life is the Tav. We've told you before that that central column of the tree of life relates directly to your spinal column, to your nervous system, to the Vav. The Hebrew letter Vav, which is the sixth letter, represents a spinal column. It also represents Tiferet. The secret of the Vav is intimate with the secret of Tav, and they even sound similar, Vav and Tav. In fact, to write the letter Tav, to write out, to spell it, you write Tav Vav. Tav Vav. So the relationship between these two letters is very deep and significant. Because to reach the 22nd letter, the completion of the work, the Tav, you have to work through your Vav, which is your spine, which is your Tiferet, your human soul. The only way to do that is in Malkut. Malkut represents the physical world, the physical body, and the Nukva. To work in Malkut is to work here and now, from moment to moment. This is not something in the future. This is not something to theorize about, to contemplate, to debate. Malkut is Asya, the fourth world of Kabbalah, and Asya means the world of action. To work with the Vav is to work in action, in Asya, now, from moment to moment. And how do you work with Tiferet? You pay attention. You be conscious of everything that you do in your mind, in your heart, in your body. You see, we have three brains, three centers of psychological activity in ourselves. We need to bring Tiferet, our consciousness, to be fully awake in these three brains, to be fully aware. But unfortunately, our Tiferet is asleep. Our psyche is asleep. We need Eros to awaken psyche. Eros, Christ, is the force of love. Until psyche awakens, our Tiferet, our Vav, is negative. It is asleep. That is why in the book of Revelation, the beast has the number 666. Those are three Vavs, three brains, mind, heart, body. All three are asleep. All three are dominated by animal desire in us. Our mind is dominated by fear, pride, envy, anger, lust, greed, gluttony, laziness. Our heart is dominated by negative emotions, by resentments,
by memories, by cravings. Our body is dominated by habits, by laziness, by busyness. Our three brains are 666. Three negative vavs, inverted, in hell. That is why we suffer. We need to rectify that, to correct it. So you see then that the tav and the vav encompasses this whole tree of life, which is us. The tree of life does map the cosmos, but its primary importance is a map of our mind. The tav, the mark, the seal, synthesizes our tree of life. Right now, we are a beast, an animal, 666. This beast that we worship performs wonders, performs so-called miracles through the ego. But that beast receives a mark which condemns it to hell. That mark is a tav. That mark is the summary of all the actions of that beast in our mind, in our heart, in our body. In order to resolve this situation, we need help. Humanity and the suffering that it passes through is growing worse. From day to day, from generation to generation, we can observe that humanity is not ascending to a golden age. Humanity is descending into horror. We try to deny it. We try to be optimistic. But the facts are everywhere that this society is crumbling, decaying from the inside. We, individually, are what Jesus spoke of. Whitened sepulchres, whitened tombs, dead. We try to cultivate a beautiful appearance, to dress well, to speak a certain way, to appear saintly, to act like a good religious person. But inside, we are full of rottenness, full of filth and impurity. We are not judged by the divine, by the laws of nature, by the laws of God, based on our appearance. We are judged by our action. We are judged by what we are and what we have done. So to resolve this situation and change it, we need to see the truth. The truth of who we are, the truth of our world, and most of all, the truth about religion. Without that truth, we cannot change. This is why the Gnostic teaching is so critical. All religions are beautiful, needed, necessary, and important. The Gnostic movement is non-sectarian. We embrace all movements and all religions. Nonetheless, we demand clarity of expression. We demand the complete teaching because humanity needs it. Truth, the complete doctrine, is the responsibility of Samael in this age. In Hebrew, the word truth is emet. Emet is spelled Aleph Mem Tav. Aleph Mem Tav. Truth. These three letters also comprise the entire alphabet, because you see, Aleph is the first letter. Mem is the central letter, the middle of the alphabet, and Tav is the end. Here we find the complete truth, all of the Hebrew letters. The Aleph is related with Keter, with that first manifested force, the Ruach Elohim, that spirit, the wind. That is related with our own innermost. when that force manifests, the wisdom that we need, the knowledge that we need, is impregnated into Mem, the waters of the Divine Mother. Those primordial creative forces represented by the letter Mem. And we can receive that in its completion, in its totality, through Tav. Aleph, Mem, Tav. You see here the process of that energy, the knowledge, the light emerging and becoming a fully developed human being. Emet. This is why Christ, through Jesus, said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. Christ, Christos, is that Esh, the light, which is in its synthesis the Trinity, Keter, Hokmah, Binah, the three primary forces. Christ is the way, the path, the knowledge, the Dharma, the Torah. Christ is the light. Christ is life. Christ is truth. What's exceedingly interesting about that Jesus stated that, is that the ancient symbol of Tav is a cross. In ancient times, the Tav was written as a cross. Now, isn't it interesting that the Christians think the cross belongs to them, when it does not? The cross is a Hebrew letter. It is the letter Tav. And when Jesus, the initiate, the master, was crucified, he was hung upon a Hebrew letter Tav because he was a Jew. This symbol is Jewish. It is Hebrew. It is also Babylonian. It is also Assyrian. It is also Egyptian. It is also Tibetan. It is also Hindu. You find the cross in every religion. You find it in the Odinic mysteries, in the Nordic mysteries, in the Aztec, even amongst the Maya. The cross does not belong to Christians. The cross belongs to the universe. The cross is Tav. The cross is the mark, the synthesis of everything. Within it, everything is summarized. And this is why Christianity wisely adopted the cross as its symbol. That cross represents the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate expression of the direct path, the path of the Bodhisattva, which is Tav, complete sacrifice, ultimate love, supernal compassion. You see, that light, that fire of Christ, is not dogmatic. It is not judgmental in the way we think of it. The light of Christ is pure love. It is pure light, cognizant love. And the cross represents that. The cross unites the entire tree of life. You see here, if we place the Tav, the ancient form, as a cross over the tree of life, the central pillar, the central column, is the center of the cross. And where does the vertical or the horizontal beam cross the tree? Tiferet, which begins and ends with Tav. So if you hang that horizontal beam on Tiferet, those two Tavs support it. You can visualize this. The tree of life has a cross that bridges through Tiferet. And that is why Jesus was crucified. This is a symbol that the human soul must sacrifice all desire. The human soul must sacrifice itself for others. The human soul must die, psychologically. The cross also represents, as we've explained throughout this course, Tantra, alchemy. And in tantric traditions in the East, the cross is a symbol of this. The cross in movement. Because you see, the cross is used by all mystics, whether those mystics are purifying themselves or degenerating themselves. They all use the cross. You see, Tantra has two main forms. We call them black and white because of their relative state of purity. Black Tantra is very common. Many religions teach Black Tantra. They may not call it that. But if they teach sexuality while in the presence of animal desire and the orgasm, they teach Black Tantra. White Tantra teaches how to restrain the sexual force and utilize that fire to purify the mind. This is pure Tantra, white Tantra. This sort of Tantra is what we teach. In white Tantra, one utilizes all the forces in all three brains, all of that fire and energy, and transforms that into light and offers it back to God, purified by the force of willpower, which is the virtue of Tiferet. Tiferet is will, conscious will over desire. But if Tiferet is seduced by desire, by lust, by cravings for power, like spiritual power even, then Tiferet falls negative. In this case, that cross is utilized to take those energies and use them, but negatively. So we see then the cross is used in every religion, in every person, depending on how we use our energy. But in white Tantra, or white magic, or pure Dharma, that cross is put into movement. That energy is propelled back upwards, from Malkut up. Thus, that cross spins and forms a swastika. That symbol is present in every religion and represents this mystery. How the crossing of male-female and the restraint of that force empowers the cross with motion, spiritual motion. And that energy, that fire, illuminates the psyche. It rises upwards along the Vav, from Tav to Tav. This is what we call initiation. The means to do it is called Torah. Many people think that the word Torah refers only to the writings of Moses and the prophets in the Hebrew traditions. But in fact, the word Torah, which is spelled Tav, Vav, Resh, He, actually means teaching, law, instruction. It's the same word as Dharma. In Sanskrit, the word Dharma means truth, law, teaching. So Dharma and Torah, which even sound similar, are really the same word in different languages, the same meaning. So when we talk about the Torah or the Dharma, we're talking about the teaching, the knowledge, the method to purify oneself, to illuminate oneself, and ultimately to perfect oneself. This Torah, or teaching, is described in the book of Proverbs as a light. It says, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the Torah is a light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life." Now, many read this and take it literally and think that the Torah or the law is some kind of light, physically or otherwise, and reproofs of instruction are a way of life, like the way you have to live life. And that's true in a certain sense, but there's a deeper meaning hidden here, because the word Torah hides the word light. Light is spelled Aleph, Vav, Resh. The Aleph is hidden in the midst of Tav, the letters Tav and Vav. Remember, I explained to you that the letter Vav is spelled Tav, Vav, right? Tav. Two letters, Tav and Vav. But in the middle of them is the light, the Aleph, the wind, the spirit. So here, Torah could actually be spelled Tav, Aleph, Vav, Resh, He. And in the middle there is Aleph, Vav, Resh, or light. We all know the word Weor from Samael Aun Weor. Weor means and light. So the light, the or, is hidden in the Torah. And you can hear it in the word Torah, light. But what is that light? When we study the tree of life, we see at the top this supernal triangle, Keter, Hokmah, Binah. That 3 in 1 is the Trinity, the cosmic Christ. That force is the light of the divine. It is the manifestation of the Ein Sof Or. Or means light. Ein Sof Or means the limitless light. That is the light that is in the Torah. But the Torah does not belong to the Jews. Just like the Dharma does not belong to Tibetans or to Indians or to the Japanese. The knowledge, the wisdom, belongs to any soul who embodies it, who actualizes it, who lives it, who becomes a Torah. You see, in the Zohar, it's explained very well that the Torah is not simply stories, that the stories are a garment, a veil that contain the real Torah, the real knowledge, the wisdom, the law, the teaching. Those who see only the garment, the stories and anecdotes and myths, do not see the Torah. They only see the garment. They don't see the soul and spirit that's within it. The same is true of Gnosis. In the Gnostic tradition, there are many who study the beautiful words of Samael Aun Weor, but they fail to see the Torah, the light inside of those words. They may memorize books and quote Samael Aun Weor very well, but they do not actualize the teachings in their consciousness. They do not become that. Instead, they remain as they've always been. And Samael himself commented about that, sadly, many times. In order for us to actualize that light of Torah in ourselves, we have to follow the steps that it provides. But those steps are not literally written. The written law is only the inferior law. In other words, the written Torah is just a shell. It's just a garment. It is sacred, but it is also transcended by a superior law. You see, there is a law that we study in Gnosis that says, when an inferior law is transcended by a superior law, the inferior one is washed away. That law is Torah. That law is Dharma. But there is inferior and superior. The inferior Torah, or inferior Dharma, is the written law. Like the Ten Commandments. Like the Vinaya. Like the vows. The behaviors. The attitudes. The steps that one takes physically. The commandments. Many things that we learn and adopt from reading and studying and hearing from our instructors, what we should and should not do. In yoga, these are called yama and niyama, the first steps of yoga. But these are the inferior law. They are necessary, but they are not the ultimate law. When Tiferet begins to receive illumination because of being purified, Tiferet begins to receive the superior Torah, the higher law. This law comes from the innermost. This is the law, the truth, the Dharma for that initiate. In other words, these are instructions that the initiate receives from their own inner Buddha. And those instructions transcend everything else. We observe in the life of Samael Aun Weor many things that he did that others did not understand. Many steps that he had to take that others condemned, criticized, and even attacked him for, because they did not understand the superior Torah, the superior law. Likewise, in the lives of every initiate, in the life of Jacob, Moses, Jesus, Krishna, all of the great teachers, we observe this. That when they follow the steps that they are instructed to take, the world criticizes them, doesn't understand them, attacks them. But you see, the world judges based on appearance, but God judges based on action. Remember, Tav is about judgment. Therefore, we need to understand that difference. We begin by following the written law, the inferior Dharma, or Torah. But gradually we need to grasp and receive that real law from our own innermost. We need to know what we ourselves must do to overcome our karma and to fulfill our destiny. And sometimes those actions contradict the written law. For example, it is stated throughout all the religions in the world that the hidden doctrine should not be revealed. But those religions belong to the previous age, the Piscean era, which has passed. But there are many now in this new Aquarian era who still firmly attach themselves to Piscean thinking, attached to old ways of doing things, attached to the past and to habits. And they have their scriptures to enforce their belief. But they do not hear the new current, the Aquarian current, which is revolutionary and which demands that the teaching be given in full. This is what Samael Aun Weor came to do, to initiate that, to close the Piscean era and open the Aquarian one. Many have refused to walk through that door. In fact, it's common amongst Gnostics to find this resistance to teaching the full doctrine, a fear, a hesitation to teach openly about the mysteries of Tantra and sexuality, when that is the mission of Gnosis. That is the very heart and soul of Da'at. In the past, true, it needed to be withheld. But now this light must be given. This is a commandment from Christ. It is not written. It is something you acquire through Tiferet, through the soul. In order to acquire it, one has to be living in accordance with the covenant. That covenant is the letter Yod. And the covenant represents transmutation, chastity. If someone is not observing the covenant, they cannot enter the door to initiation. The covenant is the prerequisite for everything. The covenant is that which purifies. And that's why it says in the gospel, in the Bible, let the waters bring forth abundantly. The waters are mayim, which is that mem in the midst of truth. And mayim is written mem yod mem. In the middle of that mayim is the yod, the covenant. That seal, that mark that represents circumcision, chastity. That mayim, the water, is our sexual water. And that yod is the representation or mark of the covenant. It represents the teaching of chastity. In the Piscean era, this was secret. In the Aquarian era, it must be taught widely. The Zohar says, let the waters bring forth abundantly. And the Zohar says, this has been explained in the book of Enoch as let the waters of the holy seed be stamped by the impression of the living spirit. This is in the book of Enoch. If you've ever heard of this, this was a lost scripture that was found in recent years in Ethiopia. And the book of Enoch is a remarkable document that reveals many hidden aspects that were never openly taught, but were privately known in Kabbalah. Nonetheless, this quote states that this impression of the living spirit be placed upon the seed. That seed is zera in Hebrew, which means seed. But where is that seed in the human being? In the semen, the semen, the sexual waters of man and woman. Because remember, semen is not gender-based. It is simply sexual energy. So the Zohar says, this alludes to the impression that the Hebrew letter Yod marked upon the holy flesh more than any other mark that exists in the world. And when the sign of the Holy Covenant is defiled and put into the dominion of the other, which is the impure spirit, not the living spirit, namely by transgression, which is orgasm, fornication, adultery, the holiness of the seal is gone from him, and he is considered as if he ruined the world, for he has defiled the seal upon which the name of the Holy One is completed. Thus he ruins the world by stopping the bounty of the Holy One from the world. This is a very grave statement. To synthesize it, it is stating, the one who makes the covenant impure by his transgressions of orgasm, fornication, and adultery, in effect, stops the light of God from emerging into the world. We can observe this on our planet. Where do we see the light of God amongst men? Where do we see true altruism, cognizant love, chastity, patience? Very rare. What we most commonly see is violence, sexual degeneration, and religious wars. None of this has anything to do with the divine. This has a lot to do with the ego. And thus, those who stop the bounty of the Holy One face judgment. Tav. This is why Christ, through Jesus, said, think not that I come to destroy the law, the Torah or Dharma, or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. In other words, that energy of Christ, which emerges in the initiate through purification and illumination, comes not to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. This is a very subtle thing. It sounds easy to grasp, but it isn't. It's something that we would have to meditate on to penetrate the true meaning of it. Partly because our ego thinks it can overcome the law. Our personality, our I, thinks, I can do what I want. I've got time. God loves me. God will forgive me. Everything is going to be okay. I'm with the right religion now, so I found the real teaching, the real group, so I'm good. I'm on the express train to heaven. This is all lies that our ego tells us. None of it's true. Christ comes to fulfill the law. That is, to fulfill judgment. To measure our soul against the Torah. This is a very significant statement. If you've studied the Egyptian mysticism, you may have encountered what is called the negative confession. The negative confession is where the soul stands before the court of Ma'at. Ma'at is Egyptian for truth. And in that court of truth, the soul has to state, I have not killed, I have not lied, I have not stolen, I have not been greedy, I have not been lazy, I have not disrespected anyone, and so on and so on. None of us can do that. Because in the presence of that court of the law, everything that we are is perfectly revealed, is seen in the light of the divine. Nothing is hidden. So all of those corners of our mind and those little behaviors that we try to not show other people and we often avoid in ourselves are revealed as in the light of day. That moment will arrive for every soul. It is symbolized in every religion. Amongst the Buddhists, the soul is said to appear before Yama, the god of death, who holds up a mirror, and the soul sees itself as it truly is. This is the same symbol as the soul arriving in the Egyptian court of Ma'at. The same symbol of the revelation of the final judgment, when Christ sits in judgment over all beings. You see, at that judgment, every soul receives a mark, a tav. Are you prepared? I'm not. I'm sure most of us would say that. Thus, we need to work. We need to purify ourselves. And this is why we've received the Dharma. Not the Piscean era Dharma. This is a beautiful teaching. All of the scriptures, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Gnostic Gospels, the Sutras, the Tantras, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Popol Vuh. These are all beautiful, but they are all Piscean. We need the new fifth gospel, the new doctrine, the Aquarian doctrine. Some of it is written now, but not all. To receive the entire doctrine, you have to awaken your consciousness. Jesus synthesized it in his teaching when he was asked, Master, what is the greatest commandment in the law, in the Torah? And Yeshua, Jesus said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the greatest commandment. In other words, thou shalt not love thy pride, thy vanity, thy fear, thy resentment. Thou shalt love thy inner God, thy inner Buddha, from moment to moment, always. Therefore, we need to study and understand our own mind. To help us, we've received the Dharma, this new doctrine. And about that, we can read in Ezekiel, when God instructs his prophet and tells him to tell the house of Israel, "Thus saith Jehovah Elohim, I do not do this for your sake, Israel, but for mine holy name's sake, which ye have profaned among the heathen," the ego, "which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, said the Lord God, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes." The heathen here is our own mind. It's our ego. It isn't outside people who aren't in our particular religion or group. It is that heathen aspect of our own psyche. In other words, we need to show the ego in ourselves who is the real God. And the scripture continues, "For I will take you from among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and will bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, Mayim. And ye shall be clean from all your filthiness, and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit, Ruach, will I put in you. And I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim." In other words, to synthesize, by purifying ourselves of our own heathen gods, which are all those psychological aspects that we worship in our minds from moment to moment, from day to day. By means of this, our own Ein Sof can put into us a new Ruach, a new spirit, purified. And that is how we are redeemed from the lands of the heathen, which is Klipot, hell, through purification. Moment to moment. Not just 5 minutes a day. Not just those few minutes a week we decide to meditate. This must be continual. Continual. Always present and active in oneself. This is how we discover who the Messiah is. Every religion claims to know about the Messiah. And if we want, we can go out now and find 10 or 15 or 100 people who think they are the Messiah. This is not reality. The word Messiah in Aramaic is spelled Mem, Shin, Yod, Het, Aleph. Meshayach. The Messiah basically means anointed one. It's a title, not a name. Every religion claims this or that Messiah. The Jews claim that King David will have something to do with the new Messiah that will come in the future. The Christians claim that Jesus will come again. The Aztecs believed that Quetzalcoatl was to return. The Hindus believe that Vishnu will send his avatar as a Messiah. Even amongst Tibetan Buddhists, we have Kalachakra and a great avatar or new king who will come to rule over the earth in a future age. And also amongst the northern Buddhists, Maitreya, the future Buddha. All of these represent the Messiah, but every one of them is a symbol. To understand that symbol, we can look into the Zohar and study the teaching about the Messiah, what that force, what that symbol represents. In the Zohar it says, in the year 66, the king Meshiach will appear in the land of Galilee, and he is called Meshiach ben Yosef. Naturally, most people who read this read it literally and think that in some year 66, some person's going to be born with the name Meshiach ben Yosef, and he's going to save the world. This is not so. The Zohar is a book of Kabbalah. Everything is symbolic. So we begin with the year 66. It says, in the year 66, the king will appear. What is 66? I already explained to you about the number 666, which are 6 vavs. But actually, the number 66, if you write it, it is samek vav. Samek is the 15th Hebrew letter, but represents the number 60. Samek is a serpent. The serpent in motion, in movement, the Ouroboros. And the 6 is a vav. But if you say the word samek vav instead of the number, it means end, conclusion, termination, finished. Thus, in the year 66 means at the end, at the conclusion. At the conclusion of what? The work. When one is done with one's purification, when one has completed the Torah, the Messiah appears. Christ. That king. In other words, a resurrected master. We know this is true because when we analyze this word Mashiach, we see the 3 mother letters of Hebrew. Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Aleph is the air, Shin is the fire, Mem is the water. Those 3 letters are the crown of life. You see this crown? Aleph, Shin, Mem. Aleph is Keter, Shin is Hokmah, Mem is Binah. So those 3 letters represent the cosmic Christ, the supernal crown. And what letters are left in Meshiach? Yod and Het. And what does Het Yod spell? Chai, life. So what's hidden in this word, Meshiach, is the crown of life. Have you studied the book of Revelation? When Revelation says, he who is faithful unto death will I give a crown of life. That crown of life is the Messiah. Hidden in these letters. If you don't know the letters, you can't see the mystery. This is the value of studying. Furthermore, this word Galilee, it says that the king will appear in the land of Galilee. Galilee is the name of a place, but it also is a word that means province. It just means a region, an area. But Galilee is a symbol of Malkuth. It represents Malkuth. Thus, at the end, at the termination, at the completion, the Messiah will arrive in Malkuth, in us. Furthermore, if you add up the value of the name Galilee, it synthesizes in the number 6, which is Tiferet, the human soul. And this is where the Christ emerges in us, through Tiferet, through our Vav. This is particularly significant because the year 66 is written Samek Vav. The Vav is the spine, right? The Tiferet, the human soul. The Samek is the serpent, the Kundalini. So this little line in the Zohar that most people skip right past, if they even read it, hides the whole mystery of initiation. The whole mystery of entering into the direct path. and being resurrected. Thus we see here that if we hold fast to the covenant, if we observe that covenant of chastity, and we purify our mind, we are aspiring towards receiving the crown of life, which is the Messiah. The way we do that is incessant purification, psychological purification, daily, moment to moment purification of oneself. This is the only way. You can transmute your sexual energy and be in chastity as much as you want, but if you do not work on your ego from moment to moment and day to day, you will receive nothing from above. We receive according to our action. We receive according to what we do. God rewards the pure ones, not the impure. So you see here that God, Jehovah, has provided for us two ways. Two ways to receive the Tav. The way of life and the way of death. The way of life is walked when we respect this Aleph. The Aleph represents Keter. It is the wind, that divinity that gives us the power to be alive. When we respect that through the covenant, we can enter the path of life, Chaya. This is why in the book of Jeremiah it says, "Behold, I set before you a way of life and a way of death." Life is Chai. Death is Mavet in Hebrew. This is a very important term. If you've studied magic, you may have heard of a thing called a golem. A golem is a creature, a servant that an alchemist will create in the laboratory. And there are many stories and mythologies about the golem. In fact, Frankenstein comes from this tradition. The idea behind the golem is that the alchemist or magician will work with the forces or minerals of the earth in order to craft a magical creature which has great powers and will serve the magician. That creature is the golem. And you can find this tradition throughout many religions, but especially amongst the Jews. The golem is a Hebrew word. The way that the alchemist would make this golem is very veiled and symbolized and hidden in all kinds of myths and lies. It represents how our own magician, our own innermost, creates the man, Adam. You see, the Elohim creates Adam from Adamah, the ground, the earth, Malkut. The man is the soul. That man, when it's complete, will have all the powers of God and will serve the magician, the innermost. That man is supposed to be you and me. And the way that that golem is finished, when all of the parts are assembled, which is a symbol of initiation and the creation of the Merkabah, or solar bodies, the magician, who represents the innermost, writes on the forehead of the golem, Emet, truth. On the forehead. Emet, truth. Aleph, Mem, Tav. Then the golem becomes alive. That is how the golem incarnates Christ. The way, the truth, the life. The golem comes alive. It becomes a living soul. It becomes a resurrected master. Nonetheless, there is a way to kill the golem. To kill the one who receives Christ. And that is if the magician or anyone scratches out that Aleph from the forehead of the golem. The word that is left, mem tav, ma'avet, death. In other words, no matter how high we ascend, if we transgress the covenant, we die. We lose everything. This is why the book of Revelation clearly presents two marks: the mark of the beast and the mark of the living God. The mark of the beast is either on the forehead or the hand, because the hand is how we act. The hand is how we work through our yod, through our kaf. You see that ma'avet, mem tav, there's a vav hidden in the middle, but it's negative. It is the vav of the beast, 666. So this story of the golem hides a great mystery as well. In the Revelation we read, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads." This fifth angel is Samael. The star falling from heaven unto the earth is Samael. The bottomless pit is Klipoth. The smoke out of the pit is the karma. The sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit, because the sun, Christ, and the air, the mind, have been darkened by the karma of the age that is necessary to be paid. And out there came from the smoke locusts upon the earth. The Zohar explains to us that the locusts represent the knowledge of Kabbalah. And unto them, the locust, was given power, as the scorpions have power in their tails, in their stinger. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, nor any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. In other words, any living soul cannot be hurt by the teachings of Kabbalah, because any living soul is in harmony with those teachings. Any living thing, anything that has Chaya incarnated. We do not. It says that those locusts can only affect those which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. What is that seal? It is emet, truth. We are a golem. We do not have truth in our heads, nor in our hearts, nor in our bodies. We have the potential for it, but instead we worship the beast. Therefore, Revelation says, "And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These were cast alive into the lake of burning fire with brimstone. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark on their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years." This story is a repetition of a story that appears in the book of Ezekiel, in which God tells Ezekiel in the temple that he will kill all of the impure ones, those who have corrupted the house of Israel. And the Lord tells a man clothed in linen, upon whose loins was a tablet of a scribe, "Pass through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and ye shall mark a sign upon the foreheads of the men who are sighing and moaning over all these abominations that were done in my midst." And afterwards, these 6 Enoshim, or real men, angels, went into the city and killed everyone, because no one had the mark. In other words, to have that mark, that tav, you need to be sighing and moaning over all the abominations that were done in the midst of God. In other words, in your own temple, in yourself. Who amongst this humanity sighs and moans over the abominations in their own mind? None. Everyone justifies, washes their hands, and believes that one day God will forgive them. It's true. After passing through Ma'avet in hell, yes. When the soul is pure, yes. There are 2 ways. We purify the soul consciously now and avoid the passage through hell, or we pass through hell. The choice is ours. One way or the other, we receive our tav, our seal. Do you have any questions?
With Samael's books, there's certain books that are marked with so many chapters, like Aztec Christian Magic has exactly 22 chapters. What is he trying to say in relation to the Hebrew letters with 22? Is he just saying, don't forget the Hebrew letters, or is each chapter related to a Hebrew letter?
It's important to remember that the Bodhisattva Samael Aun Weor, when he wrote his books, wrote what his inner being, Samael, was giving him. There is a lot there that's not on the surface. And that's why Samael Aun Weor stated repeatedly, do not read my books like you're reading a newspaper. You won't get it. Everything is written for a reason and purpose. And there is significance hidden, just like in any of these scriptures. We're revealing a lot that's hidden in these Piscean scriptures, right? But there's even more hidden in the Aquarian ones, which include the writings of Samael Aun Weor. Therefore, when you see numbers and you see cryptic phrases, there are messages there that you cannot get out of the written aspect, but only through meditation. This is why we emphasize the 2 aspects of the Torah: the written and the superior. The superior one cannot be retrieved physically. As an example, when we prepare these lectures, we study, because it's necessary for us to understand what's written. But we could not get this knowledge on our own just by reading some words in a book. It's impossible. I'm not giving you my doing. I'm giving you what I've been given. You see? It's not mine. I'm just as astonished as you are. I didn't know any of this. This is all new. And it comes through trying to bow at the feet of God and receive what he wants me to receive, which I can give you. And the same is true of reading the books of Samael Aun Weor. As I mentioned, there are many who study those books, even memorize them, but do not comprehend them because they don't meditate on what's written there. It is necessary to meditate on those scriptures, and they are scriptures. And this reminds me of those who quote and study and even translate or otherwise manipulate those texts, but don't grasp the inner meaning. And this is very sad. There are some groups who take the teachings of Samael Aun Weor and mix them with other teachings. And he says in the Pieces Sophia, this is a form of adultery. It's hard for us to grasp that because we know gnosis comes from all religions, but not all religions are pure. So many people are bringing impurities and mixing them into the pure teaching. This is unfortunate. So we have to be very careful. We have to meditate on what we study. If you really learn to meditate on the books, you will get so much more. You will comprehend it. You might recall a story that Samael Aun Weor told about an illiterate Indian, a native, who said to Samael, I read your book, Revolution of Beelzebub. And Samael Aun Weor was astonished and said, how did you read it? Because you can't read. Yeah, we need that. It isn't necessary to be literate physically. We need to be literate consciously. Yes?
A lot of us have been indoctrinated with Piscean age ideas because of our parents, because of society, because of the media. If we, as adults, hold on to those Piscean age ideas, is it because we're not ready for the teachings yet?
Those who are grasping onto Piscean era teachings are grasping onto the past, and thus will flow along through devolution with all those elements from the past. It's quite simple. In order to receive the new current, the spiritual current that emerges from instant to instant, we have to let go of everything, mostly ourselves. People who become very attached to a teaching or a religion are people who have not understood what religion is. Real religion is religare, or yug from yoga, which means to reunite. And the real meaning of that is to unite oneself with an actual fact, something that truly exists. But our ideas and beliefs don't exist. They're just theories. They're just ideas. What truly exists is the Ein Sof. And to unite oneself with that, everything else below, we have to see it for what it is, which is illusion, Maya. It doesn't matter what we call ourselves, it matters what we do. And it's unfortunate to see people become very attached to one religion or another, one teacher or another, one movement or another, when the fact is, none of those can save us. The only thing that can save us is the Messiah. And that comes inside. The Messiah is born in our heart and aids us in our purification until we're ready for death. That death is on the cross, the Tav. And when that death occurs, then there's resurrection. Resurrection doesn't come because we believe in Christianity, or because we believe in Judaism, or because we believe in Tantra. Resurrection comes when we have died as a mind, as an ego. When all ego is dead, then the light comes. Another question? Okay, thank you.
The presentation of this lecture was made possible by donations from listeners like you. Help Gnostic Radio to help others. Make a donation by visiting gnosticradio.org. For questions and deeper understanding of this lecture, we invite you to explore the wide variety of resources available on our websites. Thank you for your support. May all beings be happy.